All right, so today I want to talk to everyone about what I think about these data centers. So, who am I? Why is this even relevant? So, I'm Will. I'm a former AI researcher slash software developer. I've got my degrees from Purdue University out of IUPUI. I worked at Carnegie Mellon University out of the Software Engineering Institute for a while, where I actually got to dive into trusted AI. What does it mean to have trust in your artificial intelligent models? I came back to IUPUI for my PhD, where I specifically worked on trusted AI models, understanding the field. What is diving deep into the philosophical concept behind artificial intelligence and trusted models. And all this was occurring around the same time as the scaling law was starting to make itself apparent, that people were believing we need to make bigger and bigger artificial intelligent models in an attempt to attract this concept known as artificial general intelligence, AGI. It's not the same thing as artificial generative intelligence, which is generating work versus discrim- dis- discriminators that would actually try to make classification decisions on information, but generalizing information. AGI itself, the assumption is that we can create artificial intelligence that acts and operates as a human without much limitation. For instance, if I want a robot that can take care of me in hospice, then the idea is that this robot won't accidentally fold me in half or something like that. Like, we do not have that. We don't have any functional capability of a model or artificial intelligence that can operate similar to how a human is. And many of the experts that believe in this strive for AGI would even tell you that it's too limited to even try to think of human intelligence as the actual intelligent target. Instead, they are pushing more towards a super intelligence that surpasses that of human beings. And I would tell you that we don't need that right now in society. I am definitely anti attempting to get that today. I'm not against working towards it. I'm definitely against trying to use something like the scaling model with large language models to try to approach some form of AGI. There are still issues with the lack of ability for it to reason. There's still issues with the pointillistic nature of it, in such a way that we're not going to necessarily get rid of the hallucinations with this current technique. We need better research and better understanding, a lot more time in trying to understand openly available models, not these private, closed off giant models. And why did I go into all that? Why did I dive deep into this philosophical question about AI? Well, why are we when I'm discussing data centers, right? So, what is a data center? What is the point of having a data center? And much of the propaganda that's coming out is telling you it's for Netflix, it's for your phone, blah blah blah. It's true that we need data centers so that we can actually send communication, store information, queue it, and such. I have never worked at a data center. I just understand there is a need for data center technology. What you're seeing now, this giant growth, has absolutely nothing to do with Netflix streaming. Nothing. And they may be a customer of the data center, of course, it's cloud technology, but in reality, there's something called the scaling law. And I don't want to dig into this as too technical of a discussion. The point of this discussion is to reach out to the normal everyday person who doesn't research artificial intelligence, so that you can have a glimpse and an image into the AI world and why are they building a data center across the street from your house. And there's something called the scaling law, where the idea is the larger and larger you make your model, the more accurate it's going to get. But what they don't really highlight in the scaling law is that you have to exponentially rapidly grow this model to get a little bit of performance out of it. And that can be left up to a democratic discussion. It can be left up to a committee to argue how much land should we use for a data center to squeeze out how much growth. We could have that discussion. We could take time to understand it as a community. They're not trying to have that discussion. They're just trying to make the models as big as possible. This is corporate greed. This is a billionaire's attempt to make a little toy AGI, but not just a little toy. The idea is they want to be first to market. If you understand anything about capitalism, the idea is that these guys want to compete with each other to have just that little bit nudge above each other. Who's going to have that great model so that they compete, be first to market, have the resources, have the land, have the water, have the electricity, have the NVIDIA GPUs. I'll get into that eventually. Is a monopoly in artificial intelligence on NVIDIA GPUs. And I've been told this repeatedly, like in this field, if you're operating in a gold rush, then you want to be the one selling the shovels. And NVIDIA is selling the shovels. They're selling the NVIDIA GPUs that all of this technology is operating on its middleware, CUDA and other technologies, but it's hard encoded to work on NVIDIA GPUs. And other companies are releasing, yes, of course, they're releasing their hardware, but it's not competing with NVIDIA. And the reason why is because all of your retirement funds are locked into the NVIDIA stock. This is a stock market thing. But going back to what I was saying, is that these companies are expected to make such large models in competition with each other that they don't care about you. They don't care about your jobs. They don't care about your water. They don't care about the noise that's being generated and harming you. And they're willing to come to your community like they did here in Indiana. I went to the Saby hearing where John Saby was laughing at the crowd and joking at us and mocking us. And when I try to bring up this information that I'm sharing in this video, and I walked away because I already knew what his response was going to be, someone from the crowd yelled, answer him. We want to hear your answer. And he said, well, I would short the market if that happened. Which to me, what does that mean? Are you shorting the market? Are you shorting us? Are you shorting this data center you just built? So let's dig a little deeper into what that means. Why is that such an issue? If all these companies are spending all of their time and effort and money to go out and find every plot of land, whether it has water or not, and build a data center. They're going to build various blueprints. One of the ones we saw here in Pike, or not here, but up north in Pike Township, they tried to push through a data center that was very small form, didn't use a lot of power, didn't use a lot of water, didn't even generate a lot of noise. But the American Towers is the name of the company. They have assets in radiating antenna that they spread throughout the country. I think it's the country. I don't want to speak bad on them. But they're looking at thousands of locations, which if you build thousands of these little, small, tiny form data centers, it's going to amount to a hyperscale data center. So they're going to tell you that this is an innocent data center, but the people here realize, oh no, no, we don't want any data center at all. People are waking up to it because they saw that. They were looking at thousands of plots. And they can tell you, oh, we're not going to build in all of them. But from our understanding, from the research that we've been looking into, whenever they ask for the max, they give you a min and a max, they always build towards the max. If they're looking for thousands of plots of land, they're going to build on all 1,000 if they can. If you look at Virginia has one of the highest densities of data centers in the country. Texas is growing. Indiana is growing as well. They're trying to, it's between 40 to 70 different data centers they're trying to build here. So the why behind it is not Netflix. The why behind it is this attempt for AGI. And you may look at it and say, oh, well, you're just anti-technology. Like, I want you to understand something about artificial intelligence. There is a dark history behind it. And there is a concept in artificial intelligence coined AI winter. And do you know what an AI winter is? If you go and take a look, we've been through several different AI winters. And what an AI winter actually is we come up with technology, we come up with an algorithm that all of a sudden the business side of it starts yelling, hey, this is going to give us it's going to give us AGI. And it's been going on since like either the 30s or the 40s, post World War II. where they come out and say, we got this crazy neural network that it will be able to walk and talk like a human. It's going to be able to do this and that. And then it's like, once they dump into it a bunch of research effort and money, and it comes out that it's not actually producing what you think it's producing, it doesn't live up to its own hype, then it gets abandoned, and it gets the name gets jaded, the name gets attacked. People say, oh, AI is worthless, so they have to change the names, which is why we come up with like multi-layer perceptron, we come up with convolutional neural networks, we come up with these different naming schemes, computer vision and such. We come with these different naming schemes to avoid even the name of artificial intelligence, because it does actually harm people's careers. It harms their research, and it harms the money that goes into researching the stuff so poorly that people have to come up with a different name for the tool they're working on that is actually going to be in alignment with AI. Um, and the people that are working on this, the people that are working on this push for current modern AGI, quote unquote, they know about AI winners. And I think my expectation is they're actually working in an attempt that they know they're going to reach AI winner. And you can even see Sam Altman of OpenAI bragging about how they're expanding so quickly, but if it fails, they're going to try to reach out to the government and get a bailout. Their plan is to get bailed out when they do fail. They know it's going to fail. So I want you to understand it. You're trying to say that I'm against progressive technology, but the guys working on your progressive technology for AGI are expecting it to fail. And even if you look at NVIDIA, who's selling the shovels, I think it was last year in 2024-ish or 2025, you can go back and look through their financials. Their CEO started selling a stock. Their VP started selling stock. People started quitting. They believe they're at the top. They believe they're at the cusp. These companies have already bought up so many GPUs. They bought up so many memory chips with the expectation of drastically and rapidly buying up as much land, rezoning all the land so that they can build these data centers for their AGI technology that they are that they're end gaming it. They're at the point where they're like, this is the end game. This is the end stage. We're near the end. We're gonna lie. We're gonna cheat. We're gonna steal to get our way into your territory, into civilization, into the communities. We're gonna tell them we're gonna bring you jobs. We're gonna bring you tax revenue. We're gonna do this, do that. And in reality, a lot of these states that they're building in, they're building them specifically because they're cheap to build it. Now, these companies, these boards, they have a fiduciary responsibility, despite having an overabundance of money, an overabundance of resources. They're still going to try to find the cheapest bang for their buck. So they're going to lie about what they can and can't do. They're going to use their lawyers to legally lie about it and try to push for spending the least amount of money, hiring the least amount of people. The Pike town, the data center building in Pike has 0 jobs. It's a empty AI data center, fully autonomous. May have 1 or 2 people visit it once in a while, but there's nobody in there. There's going to be nobody like operating the servers. So it's amazing when they talk about the job aspects of these things, because on average it's about 50 jobs per data center. And some of them brag about, oh, if we bring you 50 jobs, then there's going to be probably 6 to 8 jobs per person that's going out to the local community. And what they're actually telling you is something along the lines of like gentrification. They're going to fly in people from Seattle. They're going to fly in people from Texas. They're going to fly in people from California that are going to potentially either work remotely or work in the state, buy up property that's already being gentrified. So here in Indianapolis, we're dealing with a gentrification issue. All these neighborhoods are being pushed. People are being pushed out of their homes. Homes that they inherited, they're getting high taxes. They're getting fines for not keeping their yard up, not keeping their houses pretty and neat. And you come in with a $2,000 to $10,000 fine on a person that has barely any economic resources, and next thing you know, that house is abandoned. Those people are homeless, or they're living on somebody's couch, which is also homelessness. And they're expecting that they're going to bring in a couple of 100 to 200K salary workers from out of town, who's going to operate at these data centers, especially here in Martindale Brightwood, down south in Decatur, and I guess not in Pike because it's going to be empty. And then they're going to be buying tacos in your neighborhood. So that's why it's going to increase your local revenue. But these places also have tax abatements. So like Indiana has tax abatements, they have tax cuts, special deals that when you come here, you build your data center, and I think it's between 20 to 50 years you don't have to pay taxes. You don't pay taxes on the land. You don't pay taxes on the. I think we can look this up later. I think you don't pay taxes on the land. I think you don't pay taxes on like the personal property. So if you buy servers, if you buy hard drives, if you're buying the overpriced memory and GPU, that tax revenue is not necessarily going to your community. And if like the tax abatement here is like 50%, so you're losing 50%. And that money is actually going up to the state, where here we're dealing with a lot of corruption in our state at the state level of people using public resources for things like building a compound and security for their personal home, which is our governor. Our governor did that. So we have a surplus in Indiana. We have a surplus, and our roads aren't getting fixed. Our public schools are being destroyed, and they're trying to build data centers. And this is not how we need to be as a society. I don't care if you're left. I don't care if you're right. So I'm affiliated with Central Indiana DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. And yeah, I am a lefty. I'm left leaning, but I'm not here to preach socialism. I'm not here to preach the left. I'm here to talk about why I think we don't need any of these data centers in our community right now. And for those of you that think these are going to bring benefits, that these are going to bring better opportunities, these are going to bring the police to my neighborhood, like down over here in Martindale Brightwood, that's not true. There's plenty of research out there that shows it raises taxes on you. It lowers your property value. I even spoke to a person out here who was talking about their home was appraised for a certain amount, but they were getting threatened with eminent domain and were being asked to sell their home for 1/10 of the price. There's people that have pointed out that on average, their house value after a data center moves in drops below 20% of what its original value was. You are losing your asset. And I have a whole pitch and spew about why the housing market itself is criminal, why it's a scam for the average consumer to consider your house to be an investment vehicle. But for those of you that do believe it's an investment vehicle, they're taking that away the minute a data center moves in. And if they're going to be cutting tax revenues for these companies, they're not paying off their fair share. And it's still expecting for you, the individual, to pay your fair share in taxes while these companies are getting these special tax breaks and tax cuts. So they're going to be raising your utilities a lot. So I think the average cost of power that goes up is about 50%. And we've already seen our electric bills double. We've already seen ours go up. And if they're talking about raising another 50% just for building another data center right down the street from me, which I understand is going to get aggregated across the cost, then in reality, like, why would I want that here? It's going to cost me way too much money when I'm struggling to live as is. And there's people that might say, oh, well, maybe just build the data centers out far in the country. And you know what? That could be feasible. It could be a good thing. It'll get rid of the noise generation. If you build it next to a water source, it might be easier. I don't know. But we don't need to get into the climate change discussion on this because I'm still going to be against that. But either way, that power consumption is still going to exist, whether it's in your neighborhood or it's out in the boonies somewhere, because that power is going to get aggregated. That utilization is going to get aggregated. And right now, they keep doing these emergency power auctions that keep rising your electric bill. We don't have enough power. We don't have enough power in this neighborhood, in this city, in this state, in this region. Like Indiana's right next to Chicago. This whole region is struggling with power right now. And even though we have the Great Lakes next to us, you can look at it that the Great Lakes are losing water. If we're going to build more data centers, that are going to keep warming up the water, evaporating out into the atmosphere. Then it's going to keep sucking the Great Lakes dry, making it hotter in this area. And we'll have more moisture in the air. We may have a lot more turbulent weather, which I talked to a meteorologist about this. And yeah, the water is not going to disappear, but our access to it will. Our ability to actually get the water will disappear. And we're going to have a lot more violent like storms in the region. We already deal with tornadoes. And these past few years, we've been dealing with very violent tornadoes in the winter, which it can be normal, but the spuriousness of tornadoes have been rapidly increasing in Indiana, and the tornado alley is actually moving further northward. So these data centers to me are going to just contribute to that. Now, if we go back to the original narrative, they're trying to build these data centers because they're supposed to be approaching the scaling law by rapidly exponentially increasing the size of a neural network. Then what else could they be doing instead? And I want to point to you, there's a model called DeepSeek that was released by China back in 2024, and OpenAI and the stock market, NVIDIA, all of them almost took a complete tanking. And the reason why is because there's methods to take your model that is giant and extract just the core model, the submodel of it, into a very smaller representation. One of the reasons why the scaling law works is because there's something called the lottery ticket hypothesis. It's a nice paper that basically explains the larger you make your model, the more data you use, the higher the probability increases that there will be a submodel within the neural network, within this model that you have, that does the core functionality. Now, it says hypothesis, right? So you're like, oh, so it doesn't work? No, we do use it. We were using it for models such as ResNet, models such as YOLO. You could actually shrink these models that would require like a nice GPU, a nice size computer. You can shrink them to fit on an edge device. You can actually shrink them to fit on a laptop or a phone, something very small. You only need the core model that's being built. And one of the issues with trying to start out with the existing architecture that is going to be the sufficient capacity for the neural network is that it's very hard to train the correct model on the smaller model. So you have to build a big model and then use methods such as pruning, quantization, distillation, and other methods and techniques to tease out the submodel into a smaller network. And then that smaller network can be deployed. So for you, you may be saying, oh, well, then we still need the bigger models. For what I'm trying to say is that we don't know if you need the bigger model. We don't know if you need the scaling model law to actually get that. This is an attempt that is being spiked, that is being punted into our society by saying we can at least make a lot of money by being first to market and having our quote unquote AGI model and using that to finally monetize on our investments. That's what's happening. And we may be 5, 10, 20 years off from just being able to create a small, efficient AI that doesn't require this. And part of my biggest issue with this is like these companies know this. And when we were working on trusted AI, the biggest push that I found that we needed to make was policy driven, not algorithm driven. And why is that? Well, part of trusted AI is you need to know your model, you need to know the architecture, you need to know the weights, you need to know when will it win, when will it break. They need to be open sourced, publicly available. People should be able to get your model, download it, look at it, play with it, toy with it, break it, and reach out to the rest of the community and explain how you broke it so that we can improve on it. That means your data should also be publicly available, free to share, free to use. Your data, your model, what kind of validation set, what kind of training set, what kind of test set did you use on it? What were your assumptions going into this model? What are your expectations? What are some harms that your model causes? These were all supposed to be highly transparent, and these days we don't get that. Instead, we get models that are coaxing people to quote unquote off their self, um, or even in with Grok, that's allowing Twitter users to generate CSAM. So you've got models that we don't understand how they can be broken. They're hidden from us. They're being used in very giant data centers, and they're violating the basic principles that a lot of us that worked in trusted AI were pushing for. And they're using their money, power, and influence to silence people like me to because I'm unemployed. I lost my PhD when they split my college, and I'm not going to say that's related to what's going on. It feels like it, but that's a conspiracy theory, so I can't make that kind of statement. But for me, I don't work in this field anymore, and I kind of watch from the outside as it's just being dwindled down into this capitalist endeavor that I am both physically and mentally against. I could never work in this field again. Not because I'm not allowed to, but because to me it's just corrupt and it's harmful, and I don't want to contribute to harm and violence of my community anymore. I want to see us use AI in such a way that benefits society. I still use AI. I use it sparingly and I use it respectfully in such a manner that I know every time I use it, it's using a certain amount of water and resources, but also that I know that it can hallucinate and tell me false information. So I want to be very careful about the kind of content I'm putting out into the public when it comes from AI, and I want to be very clear and open and say this was generated by AI, because we need to be able to distinguish between what is something that a human created and what is some potential AI slop that has been generated that's being perpetuated as fact. And it's going to be harder to actually do that the longer that AI is allowed to be out there in the public without any control and regulation. So I recently talked to a couple people, and if you like, I have an engineering degree, and part of engineering is something called the PE, the professional engineering license. You have to work in engineering for quite a time, 2 years or so, as well as have mentorship and have someone sign off, and you have to be trained and pass the fundamental engineering exam, the FE, I think that's what it's called, and then get your PE, which basically allows you to sign off on public documents that you're an engineer and you authorize that you back it, right? And it's the same thing for lawyers. You got to pass the bar. It's the same thing for architects, which I forgot what it's called, but a person I was talking to, she's an architect, and she was explaining that she was trying to pass their test, and we don't have that for artificial intelligence. We need that. If you're going to be training a model, releasing it to the public, and allowing people to use it like a bridge, like a like a building, like an elevator. These are public facing models and they need to be regulated. So I'm not telling you the person having fun with AI or generating your own little fun project to be regulated. No, you can have fun and learn about it and learn the pitfalls, just like the rest of us did coming up in AI. But if you're going to be building a giant model on data centers that are stealing resources from the community, there should be some regulation, some regulatory agency that can sign off on your AI model, say what model is it, what did you use, how many NVIDIA chips is it using, how much power is it using, what data was it trained on, what kind of information is in it, how can it succeed, how can it fail. We need better regulation. We need better ideas behind this. So what can we do as citizens? Well, we are fighting. I'm working here in Central Indiana DSA. We are forming a coalition that we're coining Protect Indy, that we are working with advocates and politicians and community agitators, protesters, community experts. We're all trying to work together to form up a better way forward, a better path forward, and just showing up. You got to show up to these data center meetings. You got to show up to your town halls. You got to show up when they're talking about any kind of zoning. You got to look into the zoning regulations For us, they've been trying to do industrial two, I2 and I3 for data centers. Um, you got to find where are they actually trying to sneak in a data center. We have several bills that are getting pushed right now. One is HB 1423, which is ILEA's recommend. It's a bill based off of the ILEA's recommendation for charter schools, which I am advocating against charter schools and this bill. Um, but this bill potentially has a back door that allows, that potentially allow, I'm not sure, I'm not a lawyer, but we've had people read it and interpret it as meaning potentially. Someone, the city could, this corporation that they're creating for public schools and charter schools could potentially close a public school and then rezone it, or not rezone it, but sell it off to a data center developer that will build a data center there without bypassing the whole MDC zoning requirements. There's another bill, HB 1333, that is also being pushed, which part of it is, it's a lot of it is basically the current data centers that are trying to get built. It's offering some rules and regulation changes that would actually just green light all of these data centers in one go. One of them is, for instance, is just, it's like I forgot what it's called. It's like brown ground, like hazardous soil contaminated areas, just streamlining the allowance of using it for data center construction. And the Martindale Brightwood situation here, we have a guy that has been squatting on his land for quite some time. He tried to build trucking companies there. Community advocates said, no, we don't want trucking companies there. It's heavily toxic. It's a polluted site. You're not allowed to build residential there, and other kind of other kind of buildings. But he was approached by a data center, and he's happily both selling his land to the data center with the stipulation that it gets rezoned for, I think, I2 or something like that, and also that he has an investment in it. So we are dealing with right now back end shady deals with non-disclosure agreements being signed, data centers moving in without even speaking to the community, such as Martindale Brightwood, that are trying to weasel in their giant 75 megawatt data center into a community that is historically black and currently is mostly black and brown, very much an abandoned community by their current councilman, by their current the city itself. When you see other areas such as Fountain Square, the area between 10th and 16th, you see all that getting beautified, gentrified. We don't even get the gentrification in Martindale Brightwood. It gets abandoned. Well, I'm not personally in Martindale Brightwood. I'm a bit north of it, but this community gets abandoned. This area, this entire district, and people here, they need better than gentrification. They need better than a data center. They need better than to have their public schools closed. They're having every opportunity shut out from them, and I need to see better from my elected officials in this community. Um, but I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. I just wanted to try to touch on these facts about what artificial intelligence is, what are these data centers, why are they popping up left and right in your community, and what can you do about it? And I'm gonna finish on. I'm gonna leave some links to some resources in this video. One of them is, I believe, the North Star. There's a North Star toolkit that basically summarizes a lot of the data center fights and gives you a understanding of what can be done to successfully keep these data centers out of your community. I haven't had the opportunity to read it fully yet, but several of my peers are trying to get us to form up some guidelines that we can push our city to challenge them to come up with better regulations. And with that said, there's one more thing that I wanted to say before I cut this off. Um, we need to look into something like reclamation bonds. So we need to make sure that it's mandated. I'm still calling for a full total moratorium on data centers. I stand hand in hand with Bernie Sanders for that one. But if they do any kind of ordinance, any kind of regulation, especially here in Indiana, we need reclamation bonds. And what is a reclamation bond? Well, it's gonna guarantee that the company is going to pay its fair share in the case that AI is the hype that I think it is, that a lot of us think that it is, and they end up abandoning these data centers and leaving us with these monstrosities to rot with their toxic soils or their toxic coolant rotting deeper into the soil and contaminating the groundwater. We need to make sure that they can't just disappear from town and cancel a project, cancel construction, or cancel their data center and leave us high and dry with what's left over. So when this has been offered as some sort of mediation for Sabi, Sabi said no one's ever done that, so why would we do it? When it was offered to American Towers, they said, I don't know, but we'll consider it. We need to mandate it. It needs to be mandated. You need to have a reclamation bond, just like a mine. We are not going to allow corporate influence to come up in here and buy up all the land, use up all our resources, pollute our environment, spread these cancerous toxins through our communities while increasing anxiety and stress through the noise that's generated 24/7, and then suddenly abandon us without ever paying your fair share, especially through your tax abatements, your NDAs, and whatever backdoor deals you're making with people. Um, we need some sort of guarantee. We need insurance on our side as a community. And what you can do as an individual, if they're not going to push for a moratorium, still push for the moratorium, but at least push for reclamation bonds. Push for your city and your state, your town, your council, your push for this nationally, that we need to get reclamation bonds as a standardized procedure where these companies are going to be willing to foot the bill for when their little experiment dries up. That's all I got for today, and I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you are able to participate in this struggle in your community against these data centers. I know a lot of you are feeling the pain because I'm definitely feeling it. We're going to get over this. Don't worry. We got each other's back. Y'all take care.